What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for Solo Leveling. This is episode 12, and the final episode. And with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
hmm So the episode, of course, it was still action packed, but it pretty much went the way I predicted. Unfortunately, like I mentioned before, like it wasn't going to get too much into the whole the Jeju story arc, which of course, they do show it
Well,
slightly, but
it seems like my predictions were correct, in that they were definitely setting up the Jeju Island arc at the end of the episode.
yeah, it's just it kind of cuts off to the point where they're just about to initiate that operation, um, but like I said, throughout this entire season, much of the season has been focused mostly um on Sung Jinwoo's initial development and leveling up his abilities.
Yeah. So of course it picks up where the last episode left off, where he's surrounded by all these knights. I definitely think the standout part of the episode was the fight scene with him and just fighting off all the knights. But he eventually realizes it's kind of futile to fight them, because they keep spawning in, or no matter how many of them he defeats, they just keep coming.
Yeah.
And also, like, the whole time he's kind of being overwhelmed by the knights too. And while it's happening, he's having this conversation with his, I guess this just a conversation with his past self, who's just kind of, I guess, criticizing him, or just sort of, I guess it's supposed to be a representation of his own, maybe like his insecurities or something, where he's just trying to put him down.
Mhm.
And I thought that was kind of also one of the more interesting parts of the episode too, because we haven't really gotten a good idea of his mental state or anything like that ever since he's gained all these powers.
Yeah, I mean, over time, he's been gaining a lot of confidence with his own abilities, but at the same time, he can also be a little bit reckless too, because
Mm.
like he didn't know what he was getting into when he was trying to take in this whole job change quest. He didn't realize how powerful Igris was until he just barely managed to beat him by the skin of his teeth. And now he's in another situation in which he's dealing with a whole horde of armored knights out of nowhere, uh, until all of a sudden, by the skin of his teeth again, he gets into the penalty zone, in which he forgot to do his daily quest exercises.
Yeah, and he has to fight off all these centipede creatures.
Yeah. But the one thing that does give him the advantage is he's allowed to take potions and heal himself while he's in the penalty zone, because he wasn't able to do that while he was in that other quest.
Yeah, because as we know, of course, he's already been fatigued and beaten down by his fight with Igris the Blood Red, and so he takes a potion to sort of, I guess, heal his wounds and you get rid of his fatigue, before he fights these centipede creatures,
Yeah.
which he has a time of 4 hours, I guess, to do all that.
Yeah. I mean, unlike the first time we see him, the first time we saw him, and he was just basically just running away from these things for 4 hours somehow.
Yeah.
But now, with him, being significantly more powerful, he can take on these centipedes, even killing all of them, altogether.
hmm So yeah, he does get these various different awards for killing, for killing the centipedes, and one of them, I guess, is a new dagger or a knife.
Yeah.
Um,
Apparently, it's an armor penetrating knife, because his previous one,
mm,
despite the fact that it does have, what was it, the poison and the bleeding effect, it had no effect on the knights he was fighting against. But by the time he returns to the castle with his new dagger, he can easily just cut through them like butter.
yeah, well, he also realizes that in order to get rid of the knights, he has to get rid of the I guess these mages or casters, and there are five of them
Mhm.
he has to kill in order to get rid of all the knights. Um, and then after he does this, he gets the system sends him a message, basically offering him a new job. I think it was a new title, or I get pretty much a new class or something,
Yeah.
the class of Necromancer, which isn't really, as he says, isn't really part of his build. He has like an assassin build, which a Necromancer is, of course, if you played video games or any RPGs, it's just, typically associated with like a caster class. So, I mean, if you think about it, it's like, I was like kind of thinking like in terms of video games, like he would have to like respec his whole build because like if he's going to try to be a necromancer or something, but apparently it's just something he can use. I mean, he doesn't necessarily, I guess, have to change like his whole like his build or anything like that. It's just, I guess, it's he has like just, I guess, different spells he can use, like necromancer spells.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that one such ability that he's obtained right now is to apparently resurrect, the dead knights, including Icarus. But it takes him at least 3 tries to get Icarus to, I guess, to be resurrected.
Yeah, like he tries, basically as long as I guess he says arise, that's enough to, I guess, resurrect somebody from the dead. It's not exactly clear how exactly it works. Like he has 3 attempts to try to resurrect Egress, but which the first 2 fail when he just tries to say arise. First he just says arise. The second time he says it, I guess, with the more like in a more commanding tone, but that doesn't work. So then in the third try he just tries to, I guess he tries to give Egress, I guess, some kind of some reason to follow him, that he would want to be brought back from the dead. And I guess that ends up, of course, it ends up working, and Egress comes back, which it says he's like a level of 6. So I guess he's the most powerful summon he currently has because all the knights are revealed to be like level 1 foot soldiers. So yeah, I guess now he can call forth Egress when he wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all we get to see. Of Sung by the end of the season. I mean, we don't really get to, have I mean, technically we do have a post credit scene, but it mostly focuses on the S rank hunters going after the monsters at Jeju Island.
Yeah. Yeah. So the end of the episode, like there's a post credit scene where they arrive at the island and they're examining the body of this one of those giant ant creatures, and I forget. I think they're saying like there's something like strange about it, like it's somehow like evolved to or something. And I guess that's sort of like a cliffhanger they leave things off on. I guess it's going to be when they do the next season, it's going to go into the Jeju Island arc. So I guess they're kind of just setting things up for that.
Yeah.
Which I think I think they already confirmed there's going to be a second season.
Yeah, there is, but unfortunately we don't get an actual release date of when that's going to happen, though. But I mean,
yeah, I mean it makes sense. I kind of assumed that there was gonna be a second season, considering the reception of this season, like how popular it's been. So I'm not really surprised there's going to be a season 2.
Yeah.
And like I said before, I kind of predicted that this was going to be how it would end, with them just sort of setting up Jeju Island, because they've kind of been doing that throughout the season 2, with like the different characters just seeing just having these flashbacks of what happened on Jeju Island, and also because the first season sort of just starts out that way, showing what happened on the island. So I kind of figured that was going to be how season 1 ends.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, I really felt like they could have made a second core, like a second consecutive core continuing this, but I just felt like you know, despite the fact how good this show was, it just felt like they just left it off in a weird place until the next season comes out, like either maybe later this year or sometime next year.
I guess considering where they were at in the plot, it kind of makes sense. I mean, Jeju Island, from what I understand, is I guess is a pretty big arc, so they didn't really want to get into it yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I do agree. I kind of wish this was just a full season, like a 24 episode, maybe 26 episode season, instead of just a 12 episode season. But I guess it could be that they were just like maybe testing the waters to see how people respond or receive this season, instead of just like doing a full season maybe. But I mean, I think it is pretty well received. You could tell they put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah.
So I think that might have been why they gave us like a somewhat of a shorter season.
I mean, well, considering the fact that A1 Pictures is also working on this, I mean, this is one of their, I would say this is one of their better projects that they've worked on. It's like it's
Yeah,
vastly,
I would say I was pretty surprised by how good everything looked. I mean, A1 Pictures isn't like the thing is they're not really known for having the best the best art and animation quality most of the time, except with the exception of certain projects they work on, like Sword Art Online, for instance.
yeah,
Um,
and near Automata to another extent, but
yeah,
even then, like they had, they ran into some production issues, which I don't know if that could have been the reason why this was a shorter season, maybe,
it's
but yeah,
possible.
it could, that could be a possibility, but it's not really confirmed at this point.
Mm.
But yeah, overall, I did enjoy this season. It still feels a little bit incomplete in my opinion, just due to the fact that we don't get a lot of screen time with a lot of the other characters. I mean, the amount of screen time we do get with some of the other characters like Chahain, and all the other characters, they were mostly relegated to anime original scenes that weren't originally in the manhwa.
Yeah, and I guess those were probably just there because they knew that those characters wouldn't be getting a lot of screen time this season. Um, but yeah, I wasn't really sure about the series at first. I was kind of like, I guess, somewhat lukewarm about it. I thought it was okay, but as it went on, I started to like it a lot more.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I would definitely, I'd give it a 7. I mean, I kind of had some of the same problems you had with like it not really focusing on some of the side characters, and despite how much they were built up, like Shaheen, for instance, as being like really important, they weren't really given a lot of screen time. But I'm sure that'll probably, at least hopefully, be addressed in the next season, considering I guess it's going to involve like all the Hunters Association going to the island.
Yeah,
Um,
not to mention that there are some loose plot threads, like the brother of the hunter that Sung ended up
yeah,
killing in one of the previous quests, and and also the fact that, like, there's also a bigger purpose with this whole system that Sung is working with to level himself up. I mean, we've noticed that sometimes the system, it can, I don't know, it's somewhat of a double-edged sword for him at times, because like he often needs to, take on these quests that oftentimes he's reluctant to take. He was even forced to kill, like, all the hunters at that one quest. I mean, even though they tried to kill him, it's not something that he was really you know interested in really doing at first, before he would, he forced himself to kill them all.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I don't really have too much else to say though. I thought it was a pretty decent first season. Um, I'm looking forward to season 2 whenever that comes out. Um, I don't know if you have much else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was a good first season. I honestly wish there could have been more. Just like I said, it just felt a little bit too incomplete for me, just for these 12 episodes. And I mean, it does have, it still piqued my interest in wanting the second season coming up later this year, or maybe next year. Depends on when they're planning on releasing it.
Yeah, yeah, guys. But that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.